In the news this last week, we have, once again, another pastor accused of rape. It is alarming how often these cases of Christian church leaders raping or molesting kids, oftentimes within a church building, comes across my desk. In theory, this should be unheard of, but happens more than one should assume. Police in Michigan are accusing 41-year-old Christopher Cox, pastor of Long Lake Church in Traverse City, for using drugs on two boys in order to rape them. One of the victims is a 19-year-old homeless boy. Christopher told the victim to come home with him for drugs and sex with women. The victim said that he smoked meth and took CBD shots, a relaxer, and GHB, street-named the date rape drug. The probable cause statement says that the boy was incapacitated for several hours, during which Christopher raped him repeatedly. The next morning, the victim said that Christopher threatened to kill him if he told anyone. The other victim said that Christopher gave him meth last October and that he felt drunk. While he was incapacitated, Christopher began to rape him. Several hours later, Christopher stated that he had to get home to his wife and child. One of the church's clerks, Jerry Dennis, spoke up and said, "I can't imagine that he'd come back. All we can do is find another pastor." How many pastors need to be convicted of rape before we begin to ask why this happens? Is it more than an anomaly? I suspect it is. I will put forth a theory for why the church has a historical problem with sexual aggression. I have heard a common argument that Catholic priests are more susceptible to molesting young children because of their forced commitment to a life of no sex. The repression against their natural biology leads them to take extreme urges out on vulnerable people. Young people become a target. When you repress a biological need, it will sometimes manifest in a monstrous way. I believe it is the same with these Christian pastors. Imagine being born gay into a strict Christian home and environment, and felt a deep shame for your attraction to boys rather than girls. These kids will most likely repress their sexual desires and even grow up to marry women due to an intense feeling of possessing evil or sinful desires. Because of this unbearable biological struggle, many of these kids probably drew much closer to the church than what would seem normal, due to a constant feeling of needing God's interaction to help eradicate their attraction for the same sex. A certain percentage of any population is gay. These kids are gay, and growing up Christian, they would believe the biological cravings they are experiencing are an evil abomination to God and worthy of hell. With such a continuous and desperate need for God's help, and at such young ages, many of them would likely become highly dependent and integrated into the church, with some even becoming pastors or priests. However, you cannot stay a biological calling forever. At some point, the levee will break. Here is where things get very interesting. It is very true that the more one studies their Bible or faces the illogical problems with faith on a daily basis, such as a ministry job, the more one is likely to realize it is not all true. The Clergy Project is a safe haven for Christian pastors who no longer believe and wish to share their feelings in confidentiality so that they can keep their jobs at the pulpit. There is no shortage of Christian clerics who subscribe to the Clergy project, who lack all faith but remain teachers of it. Most will continue preaching because there is nothing else they can do. If and when they begin to wake up to reality, it is at this point that some may become dangerous from years of biological withdrawals. They might act out spontaneously, drug young boys and rape them, finally giving in to a lifetime of sexual repression. Back in 1987, Jim Bakker, a world-renowned pastor, resigned from his Assemblies of God ministries after facing accusations of drugging and raping an employee and rumors of homosexual relations outside of his marriage. In 1988, he was imprisoned for a 45-year sentence, but got out after only 8 years served. We will talk more about what Bakker is doing today in just a moment. I believe that religious faith can ultimately be a component that helps shape a monster. You see, religion got this one wrong. A Christian God got this one wrong. Gay people should not be repressed or shamed if they were born with an attraction to the same sex. We should realize it is common that a small percentage of humans and animals are born this way, as it always has been and always will. You cannot stone them to death, burn them, or hide them in a closet to get rid of gay people. This has been a human tragedy for so many families that could have been avoided if religion had gotten this one right. We invite tragedy when we meddle with or repress the most powerful biological desire that humans possess. If you have a child who is gay, love them. If you know somebody who is gay, don't pick on them. Leave them alone and mind your own business. If religious culture didn't make such a big deal about gay people, there would be no need for gay pride or a big social push to normalize it. It would just be normal. Only when you repress people will they begin to shout and act out in the public eye. Our gay friends and neighbors, perhaps even family members, should never have been made to feel like they are bad people or an abomination to God. As for the Clergy project and all of those pastors who no longer believe, they number in many, and many will behave more like con men, and you can see it clear as day. Many of them attain wealth and riches beyond measure. After all, they do study their Bible for a living. Do you think the sheep would remain faithful if they too were to study the Bible every day? I highly doubt it. As for Jim Bakker, he is back out there like every other one of them, trying to save souls in exchange for dollars. He preaches the end times as a main sales pitch. The weeping Jim Bakker can be seen on television performing a tear-filled rant, begging his audience to buy buckets of his end times survival food, and warning us that our grandkids will face eternal damnation if we don't dial the phone number flashing across the screen to purchase a $60 bucket. Bakker also expressed that President Trump is here to give us time to get ready because all hell is going to break loose. He says, in quote, "We're not going to have the Antichrist show up to get the sign of the mark of the beast on our forehead or hand. It won't happen without hunger. Hunger is going to be the main thing. Most people don't get it. They don't want to get it, but that is why I am so obsessed with you all being prepared. Baker's second wife, Lori, also appears, warning how Christians will accept the mark of the beast when they see that their children and grandchildren are starving. Baker presents his newborn grandson and says, "I hear them crying. I've heard them crying for years, and God says, 'What will you do if these babies are starving?' Buy our buckets, or the kids will suffer." My friends, it is time to open our eyes to the lies and fables we have been brainwashed to believe. Religion is fable. People walking on water does not happen in reality. The stories are fable. I too am passionate. I also beg you to please begin to fervently search for the truth and be loving and generous to one another. Stay strong and wise, my friends.
I don't believe in masquerades. I don't believe that you're okay. I don't believe that God will save. Only you can solve your problems. I don't care what they sold you. They are not here to hold you.